Okay, all right. So trust is built one interaction at a time, as I mentioned, but it is an application of multiple parts. We have to have expertise, we have to have competence, we have to have rigor. Covey's model reminds us it's a multi-part mixture where character must coincide with competence. Our next story is brought to us by Tim Rose, and it's called The Client's Journey. Tim's a junior partner with Siegel, Moreno, and Stetler, where he represents the interest of employers in workers' compensation matters. He's a certified specialist in workers' compensation by the State Bar of California. Tim holds a bachelor's degree from San Diego State University and a JD from Thomas Jefferson School of Law. And for the rest of the story, we now turn to Tim Rose.
Is this thing on? Okay, good. I think I'm the only one who brought notes. Leave it up to a lawyer to overcomplicate a story. I'm going to walk around a little bit if you don't mind and then come back here. We've heard some really good inspirational stories. Les's was pretty fantastic. A couple of people were actually getting a little bit emotional back there. And I know that we're going to hear a couple of more that are just as inspirational. When I was asked to speak, it was to come from a little bit of a different perspective. I'm here to tell you that I love my job. I'm a defense attorney. I've been a defense attorney for 14 years. I've been in the insurance industry for about 20 at this point. It's hard to say that and think about all that's happened in the last 20 years, both personally and professionally. I love my job not just because of the firm that I work for. Shameless plug, Siegel, Moreno, and Stetler is the best defense firm in the state. It's not just a firm, it's a family, but that's not why I love my job. I love the freedom that my job gives me, but that's not necessarily the only reason why I love my job. I love the job because of the opportunity that it gives me to get back into what I call the heart of the matter, the basic human element, the daily interactions with people, both applicant and defense, that makes this imperfect system a little bit more well-balanced. Sometimes people will ask me, well, why did you get into workers' compensation in the first place? It's not the sexiest area of law. There's not going to be a law and order made about it. I don't anticipate there will be any movie rights to my story in the end. My kids, when they were younger, they used to ask about, when I go to court. I do handle some civil on rare occasions, and so I did tell them about juries and trials and everything. But when they got their first interaction with the actual appeals board, they were kind of surprised. Where's the jury? Where's all the drama? And we don't necessarily get that in workers' compensation, but that doesn't mean that it's not important. I think a lot about where I started from. I was going through law school, and I was a claims examiner. I actually got a job from my now ex-mother-in-law who worked for AIG. And my first semester in law school, I went through a divorce. And it was awful because I took over custody of my youngest daughter, who was 2 at the time. I was working full-time. I was going to law school at night. And I had a contracts professor on my first day tell me that I was never going to finish law school. He said that people that work full-time, people that have families, people that can't dedicate, a full day's work to the practice of, or to the study of law, would never graduate law school. And so it was with great satisfaction that I was able to go up to him at graduation and told him that I crossed that line. Now, I actually was interested in criminal law. I participated in a couple of legal clinics. I helped out on an innocent project. I actually applied for the district attorney's office, started that process. But in the midst of all of it, I kind of thought about what was it that I wanted to do with my career. I wanted a couple of things. Number one, I wanted to be able to support my family. I was remarried at the time. We had 1 kid with another on the way. I've got a total of 4 now. I wanted a job that was going to keep me interested with case law, with things that were coming out that were new, with an opportunity to make arguments. And I wanted an opportunity to have some freedom and flexibility in my practice. And I realized that I already had a job that was a natural stepping stone into all of that. So When my first employer reached out to me and said, hey, come in for an interview, I talked about it with my wife, and I said, okay, I'm going to go do this, and made the interview, and on the drive home, I got my first job as a defense attorney. People look at defense attorneys as evil, as uncaring, as no soul, and that's not true. Contrary to popular opinion, my job is not to deny benefits. It's not to hurt an applicant. It's not to be mean to them. It's not to be cruel to them. I see my job as an opportunity to give an applicant, or an injured worker, if you will, everything that they're entitled to, but under the fairness of law. One of the most basic elements in our system of justice is that both sides have a say. And sometimes that gets lost. We have very zealous defense attorneys that think it's their job to win. That's not my philosophy. We have some applicant attorneys that think it's their job to punish the defense. But most of them are very hardworking. They just simply show up to work because they want to represent their clients, they want to do the best that they can for their injured workers, and they want to get them their benefits. Sometimes it's a take-nothing case. I've had a couple of those, and it's tough. It's difficult to go into court and to make an argument that an applicant isn't entitled to anything. Sometimes it's a 100% case, which is the case I wanted to talk a little bit about today. But throughout all of that, I find myself on a daily basis coming back to the human element, if you will. And I do think a lot about the applicants that have their cases come across my desk. And I do spend time talking about it with my family. And I do spend time talking about it with the claims examiners while we discuss, okay, is this something really worth litigating, or is it something that's not? Can we find a compromise here or there? So I want to take you to a case. Unfortunately, the litigation is still ongoing, so I can't reveal the name, and for family privacy purposes, I won't. But it's been going on for 7 years now, and it involves a counselor that used to help troubled youth up in Redding, California. He was driving one day from one appointment to another, and he was T-boned by a work truck. And the person driving the work truck didn't work for the employer. He was actually a friend. He didn't have a license, and he wasn't insured. And it was a terrible accident. The applicant was believed to have died at the scene. They were able to revive him. He was in intensive care for weeks. He was in different types of physical therapy and occupational therapy and rehab for months. And in the end, it's a 100% permanent total disability case. He can't take care of himself. He can't speak. He can't feed himself. He can't take care of any of his, toileting issues. He's 100% dependent on LVNs and CNAs. He had a wife has a wife and 2 young children who have grown up with this horror for the last 7 years. I've been told it's one of the largest in the state of California in terms of costs, and I've also been told it's the biggest in my firm. We go through about $35,000 to $40,000 a month on that case, every single month, when it comes to home health care, hospice, and things of that nature. I have gone to trial 5 or 6 times on different issues, ranging from reallocation of a third-party credit to some durable medical equipment, things of that nature. But for the most part, the attorney that handles this case up in Northern California and I have been able to work out most of those things. I was given the unique opportunity to go into the home to see how they have set up the home health care. I am in awe of his wife. She's a wonderful individual. I have great respect for his children that have basically started to go through life without their dad. And I think about them a lot whenever I think about that case. And there's probably not a week that goes by that something doesn't come up on that case that I have to address. In the midst of all of that, applicant's attorney and I have established a friendship. We talk to each other outside of work. We have talked about each other's lives. We joke with the judges. We have kind of got back to that basic human element where we'll go to battle and then we'll be friends afterwards, and we'll go to battle and we'll be friends afterwards. In this industry, it's important to be prepared. One of the things I mentioned at the beginning that I love about my job is that there's constant change in case law. There's not a week that goes by that there's something new that doesn't come out, whether it's a published opinion or an unpublished opinion. The case law is never ending. And it's important as litigators, both on the applicant and on the defense, to be prepared with constantly reviewing case law, with updating codes, with knowing how to write correspondence, with knowing what issues to litigate, what issues to compromise on, what issues that we're going to hold our ground. This is the line in the sand and we're not going past it. And then there's, okay, maybe there's a little bit give and take when we litigate on the courthouse steps, if they will. But it's important to bring some balance to this unbalanced system. And it's important because it brings a little bit more fairness on both sides. And it gives an opportunity for both the injured workers, the claims examiners, the medical providers, defense attorneys, even judges to learn a little bit every day. There's not a week that goes by where I don't think I have to educate the judge on something. And so, in the end, that's the reason why I love my job. It allows me to go back to that basic human element time and time and time again as we work through these issues. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today.